Knock knock.
Who's there?
He who knocks.
That's not how you say it. If you're gonna say it properly.
How do you say it?
You have to say knock knock. Who's there? He. You say he.
My bad. I ruined the joke. Let's cut that out. But welcome, man. I appreciate you taking some time out of your day. I know you're a busy guy, running for Prime Minister of Canada, and I really appreciate you. How have you been?
I've been good, man. I've been good. It's a pleasure. It's an honor. I'm excited to be on your show, man. It's your world. I'm just living in it, JB.
Hey man, it's a give and take. It'll be a give and take episode. I call this a strategic episode, because I feel like if I have Henoc Muamba on, then the sponsors, they'll just start flowing in. So, you got to use your high value friends when you can.
As long as I get my piece, we're all happy, man.
So since you've retired, you've been doing a bunch of different things, right?
Yes, sir.
And I've found it very interesting just seeing your next career path. But the thing is like you've been doing these things while you were playing. And what do you feel has given you the most joy since you've retired from football?
What's giving me the most joy has just been the ability to explore so many different things, right? I've always been one to be so curious. Even while I was playing, as you mentioned, I tried so many different things, but to the amount at which, football allowed me to. I always tell people I feel like I had such a great relationship with football. My wife and I talk about this all the time. You need to have such a healthy relationship with football. You really do. It's tough to as well, right? But I feel like I did because of certain experiences. I hope that we'll definitely touch on this episode. But and a lot of people that I saw and witnessed kind of go through this path prior to me, whether it were mentors, friends, including my older brother as well. So I saw certain things and I told myself, well, look, I got to adjust my relationship with football. And for me, when I look back on my technically 12-year career and everything that's happened, the highs, the lows, and everything in between, I realized that my relationship definitely adjusted as the years went on. I mean, there was a point where when I first got into the CFL, I was drafted first overall, but I loved the game, and a lot of my goals were very much game centered, and how can I accomplish what I need to, but at the same time, I was already aware that there's more to life than just football, and I attribute that to my faith for sure, where I never wanted to let the game be a god or a distraction to my life. But at the same time, even through my faith, everything that I do, I approach it with, an excellence mindset where I want to be excellent in everything that I do. And so I think that is very much similar to a lot of pro athletes, especially the good ones, where they want to do everything at a high level. And so that's what makes it challenging, right? Because it takes sacrifice, it takes commitment, it takes so much for you to reach the pinnacle, for you to be the best at what you do, that it's so easy to forget that, that sport that you play or that thing that you do. And I know we're talking about football, but really it's about really life, because people can lose their identity even in their profession and what they do, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be football, but in particular in football, it's easy to kind of get lost in, hey, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to become better, and I got to be the best linebacker, I got to be the best receiver, I got to be the best quarterback. And the amount of sacrifice, commitment, dedication that it takes can sometimes, become your detriment or your downfall to the point where you kind of lose your identity. And so I feel like when I first got in, I always wanted to kind of understand where my relationship with football is, how am I still diving and dabbling in different things so that I don't lose myself within the game. And, as my career would go on, the more I would explore different things, the more curious I would get, and the more I would want to, dabble in more things. And if there's anything that I've learned and I love, especially after transitioning, it is that, man, like I just enjoy being in new environments where I might not be an expert at, where I might not be the best at. But that gives me a drive to do more because again, I approach everything that I do with that excellence mindset.
So how do you, or how would you, I guess, tell, like, say, like a athlete that is currently playing, whether they're in high school, they're in college, pros, whatever, like how did you balance, football, because you did make it to the NFL, right? So you made it to the highest level of football out of Canada, which is like very impressive, right? Guys are getting more shots now than they were before.
Uh-huh.
So the fact that you made it out of St. FX to the NFL, like, that takes a level of commitment that a lot of people don't have. So how do you balance how did you balance your commitment to football and trying to be the best, and then also, figuring things out for like what you enjoy to do?
I think it comes down to perspective, perspective and relationship, right? Again, like it's that relationship with the game that I keep talking about. Is again, like as my career would go on, my relationship with the game would change because I had the right perspective, and I think the perception that I had with the game of football was just the fact that it was a part of my life, not all of my life, and you and I were both hoopers back in the day. We never played together or against each other. I probably would have broken your ankles or dunked on your head, but I don't know why you laughing.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're a hooper, you know what we say when we play basketball. We say ball is what, right?
Life.
Ball is life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was a basketball player before I started playing football, and that was a very common saying that we would often say. But I very early on when I started picking up football, I really didn't want to let football become my life, and so that is what affected my perception of the game, and it really adjusted my mindset towards which I approached the game. And so, as much as I could give everything that I needed to, because me, like I was, one of the first guys to come in the building. I didn't beat Pip in the building ever, but I was
Yeah, you'd
one
be
of the
there like
first
three
guys.
thirty.
Yeah, see, like but I was one of the first guys to come in, and I was one of the guys that stayed pretty late. I've had multiple teams that I was in where I had like the equipment managers kick me out literally, but I love studying the game, and I love doing the extra work, and I love teaching the younger guys, and I love I really committed myself to the game. But at the same time, I knew that when I leave the building, I leave the building and I explore the world and I explore my passions and other kind of things that I was curious about. One of the best compliments that my wife has ever made to me has been the fact that she always tells me, she's like, honestly, every time you came home, regardless of a win, of a loss, you never took football home, right? And to me, that's that perception that you need to have, understanding, you know, what you need to give so you can become the best that you can be when it comes to football, but also how and what you need to explore so that you can continue to grow outside of the game. Because here's the reality, right? And this is pro sports overall, but when we talk about football, the stats, JB. The average length of professional football career is what, 2.5,
Yeah.
maybe. But some people play more, some people play less. I didn't know how many years I was going to end up playing, so I kind of began with the end in mind, if that makes sense.
Mm.
And so, I would think to myself, like, hey, look, if I don't end up playing 6 years, 4 years, 5 years, what am I doing next? So I would always kind of put that pressure on myself so that I know when I get out of football, when I walk out of the facility, I can also prepare myself for the last time that I can walk out of the facility. And so, kind of building that sense of urgency within myself to trying to think about or figure out or dive into or even just explore different things is what really allowed me to, have that balance. I can experience the highs of the highs when it comes to football, but walk out and be like, okay, well, what's next. Or I can experience the lows of the lows, whether it's an injury or it's a, it's a terrible loss, or a huge mistake within a game, but still be able to leave it in the locker room, right? Address it, right? Don't ignore it,
Hmm.
but address it. But think about, okay, well, what is the rest of my life looking like? How can I still build that part out so that once football is gone from my life, I can still enjoy, I can still grow, and I can still be passionate about what I do. And I'll tell you one story, JB. And I don't even think I've ever shared this publicly. So this is an exclusive just for you, JB.
Hey, let's go.
Um, so I get drafted first overall, right? And mind you, like I started playing football quite late. Everything happened super fast, right? Next thing you know, I'm in university on the east coast of Canada after growing up in Mississauga and being born in Africa and all of that stuff. Now I find myself in Nova Scotia. 4 years go by. There's a possibility you go to the NFL, Enoch. I'm like, what's going on? But I'm just taking on, right? Everything that is being, put on my plate. And so by the time I get drafted first overall, the opportunity to the U.S. that door kind of closes because of the combine, which is a whole nother story for another day. But I get drafted first overall. It's still a great thing. Imagine your backup plan from your biggest dream is to be drafted first overall in a great league like the CFL. So that's what happens, and I get to Winnipeg for the first time. You can only imagine the pressure that comes with being drafted first overall from the fans, your teammates, your coaches. You know this. You've been in the locker room, right?
Hmm.
And if you drafted first overall, everybody knows you. You don't know your everybody like that. And so I'm trying to get to know everybody. But I get into the city. I'm getting to Winnipeg, Manitoba. I had never been there before, JB. And I meet this guy, right? It's funny, man. I got to catch up with the guy at some point when I get to Winnipeg. But this man's name is, okay. You might not know him. I didn't know him when I met him. But
Hmm.
he was a guy. His reputation preceded him because people told me about him. He was super humble too when he approached me. But he goes, "Hey, Enoch, you were number 10, man. I like what you've been up to. I love what I've been reading about you in the papers and the interviews you've been giving. This is training camp. First time ever in Manitoba." And I don't know who he is, but he says, "Yeah, that number that you're wearing, it means something. Only dogs wear number 10." I'm like, dang, okay, yeah, like I wore 10 for a long time. Now, and then I find out later that this guy's name is, I mean, he's in the Raptors. He's got records. He was a linebacker himself. And, but he tells me, like, hey, you know, all the best. I really believe in you. So I really appreciate the kind words that he had for me. And he tells me, yeah, man, look, you have big shoes to fill, but I think you got what it takes. So just stay consistent, stay committed. The typical stuff that encouraging people would say. So he's always been a guy that supported me and encouraged me. So fast forward a little bit later, a lot of stuff happened. I get injured, my very first preseason game. Another story for another day,
Damn.
JB. Yeah, I don't know how long this thing is gonna be, JB, but
We could go as long as you have. I'm chilling.
all right. So you take note of what you really want to touch on later, but I get injured on my first preseason game as a first overall pick, JB.
Yeah,
Let that
that
sink
adds
in.
pressure to you too.
I don't know if people can ever comprehend what that feels like.
They start
Okay.
being like, "Oh, this guy might be injury
Oh, he's a
prone."
bust. You know what I mean? Like the very first thing. And so I put that aside, but I'm gonna get back to really what I wanted to share with you is um, I make the team, right? People don't know. You can be drafted first overall and still get cut or not even get that many. So I make the team. And I understand it enough because I had an older brother that played and some teammates and friends that were older that I kind of had relationships with already. So I understand like the game to a certain extent. And so I make the team. I understand the value of that. And first preseason game, I get injured, but the season gets going. I'm doing rehab and everything. I go to a local grocery store, right, just to get food for myself. And JB, guess who I see? This is my first year as a pro. Is bagging my groceries.
Oh man.
This man had an illustrious career, had done so much, for the game, for the city of Wood. I mean, people loved him. I told you, like, I didn't know anything about him, but after he had talked to me, people just kept coming. Hey, that number right there, you see that name? Yeah, that's who you were just talking to. Like, so he had accomplished so much on the game within on the field, and then he was helping me put my stuff in the bags at the grocery store, and it hit me like a ton of bricks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what? You first overall. I know you just got hurt, but okay, you come back and you become the best linebacker there is, the best linebacker that's ever played in the CFL. You set all these records, and then you end up going and bagging groceries. Listen, I'm by no means saying anything bad about anybody that works in a grocery store or even does this, right? But I
Yeah.
truly believe that as somebody that played at such a high level, that played football in particular, because to me, the way I view the game is a platform, right? And so you should be able to utilize the platform to take you to higher heights, right? Again, this is not to knock anybody that works in a grocery store or that bags
Mm-hmm.
groceries. Everyone has their stories and their journeys. I hope that that is a part that allows you to grow and get to newer places. But the way that I viewed it, it was like, whoa, and it hit me, JB. I walked down in my car. I stayed in the parking lot for a little bit before I even went back home because I'm like, I was trying to comprehend what just had happened, right? What had just happened and why I was bagging my groceries.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you what, you want to talk about fire on your butt, like lighting up a
Yeah.
fire, like that really like it gave me like a healthy fear, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I looked at my future, when I thought about the next few years down the line, it's just a healthy fear. And like I said, like I can't wait to I don't know why I never brought it up to him. I've seen him afterwards and everything, but it was just something that stayed with me for my whole entire career. And so
Mm-hmm.
when we started up the top of the pod, you asked me these questions and I talked about the perception and how I viewed the game. Like a lot of that had to do
Mm-hmm.
with, yes, my faith. Yes, I had some great mentors around, but when you experience something like I just talked about, like it just changes a lot. And so it gave me a different perspective on the game. And I was like, well, I don't like, what's the point of accomplishing all this if you can't let that translate into more when you're done? And so,
Yeah.
um, that really helped me. And here's the beautiful thing about this. And I'm hoping that when I get this conversation with, I can hear this part of it. But it wasn't until literally like maybe 2, 3 years ago, and my career is done now. And I started to think, wait a minute, that was such a pivotal, moment in my life. But wait a minute, what if owned that store? And he just happened to be there and
Fair.
he figured,
Yeah.
hey, let me do this. I was like, man, like that's a beautiful thing, right? That's amazing. And so it could have been either way. I'm glad that I looked at it from the perspective that I did at the time that I did, because the impact that it had on my life and the impact that it had on me and the transformation that it had in me, and as far as how I approached the game and how I viewed it. So I'm glad I looked at it like that. But the possibilities are endless. He could be the owner.
Yeah.
He could be a potential owner of a product in the store, and he's really good friends with the owner. You just don't know. And so I'm
Yeah.
just glad I was oblivious to all the possibilities, and I looked at it from a tunnel vision perspective where it scared me in a healthy way to think about football and think about life differently. But you want to talk about balancing, your pro career, or what you do as an athlete. That right there is a huge part of why I approached the game the way that I did.
It's and I wonder how many I'd be interested to see how many guys that we know that have had similar experiences, especially in the CFL, because I had a very similar experience too, but it was like year 3, maybe year 4. And so I was at like a different stage in my career. And for me, it motivated me more to figure out what I wanted to do outside of football during that period of time. Because, I went to school in the US, and when I originally started playing football, I just wanted to get my school paid for. right? Because I knew that like I would have to take out a student loan, or I was even thinking about joining the military if I didn't get a scholarship. So there's a lot of different things that were going on. And originally when I got to NIU, I was like, okay, I just want to get my school paid for. Then you start getting a little bit of taste of like success and you're like, oh, I can do this. And I was like, okay, I want to go to the NFL. That didn't work out. Then I get drafted to the CFL, right? So I get to the CFL, join a great locker room in Calgary, had some great veterans around me that kind of changed my mindset as far as like guys are like, you need to invest in real estate, or you need to, figure out what you want to do outside of football. But when you're young, you feel like you're Superman, right? And I'm like, Anthony Parker was my locker mate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anthony Parker was my locker mate. And he had a job in the off season, like in real estate. So he'd sell like newly developed homes or pre-developed like homes that were like, they weren't yet made, but, he showed them like the blueprints and the plans. Like, do you want to invest in this? Blah, blah, blah. And I was always like, man, why is this guy working in the off season? Like, we make good money. I thought I was like rich, coming to the CFL, more money than I ever made. And, I quickly learned that what he was doing was preparing him for life after football. And I remember seeing a guy that I consider a Hall of Famer. I don't know if he's inducted in the Hall of Fame yet. I'm not going to say any names, but I remember seeing him like working for like Amazon after he was done like a 12-year career. And I was like, I had mixed emotions, because like part of me was like, the CFL needs to do a better job of taking care of their athletes and their players, especially guys that are like platformed like that and have done great things for the league and were like one of the best players at the time. And now this guy's working at Amazon. And then I'm like, and there's nothing wrong with working at Amazon, like you said, as far as like bagging groceries, like, and it just made me change my mindset. I'm like, I could put all this time in playing the CFL and I still have to work. I could still potentially end up working a 9 to 5. Right. And, I just wanted to start kind of figuring out like what would make me happy after I was done playing and like how I can contribute to the world. And, so I fell on coaching, I fell on like mental health. And, part of having this podcast is just platforming athletes, telling their stories. So maybe younger athletes or other athletes that are currently playing will listen and maybe that'll be their light bulb moment, right? They hear you talk about your experience, or they hear me talk about my experience, or anybody else, and be like, I need to maybe have a shift in my mindset. Because like you said before, it's like a kind of like a line that you have to toe, as far as like, you can't be half in, half out and be like super successful. Right. But then if you're all in, you put everything you have into that, and then say like you get hurt or the team doesn't want you back. And now you're just like, you're hoping for a contract, and you might be working a job that you don't want to work. So, I try to just tell guys to just think about it. Right. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to like fully commit to something outside of football or your sport, but like just think about it. Yeah. Just think about it. I wish that I had done more during my career when I had like maybe more like attention on me, as far as like, up and coming Canadian receiver. I wish I had done more. And it's actually one of the things that I admired the most about being around you in Toronto. Just because I saw how you kind of navigated, different rooms, and, I know this person, I know that person. You weren't bragging, but it was just like a network that you've built up. And I like to think that I made a pretty good network as well. But one of the coolest things, and you don't know this, one of the coolest things was that Grey Cup season. What was it, 2022, right? Mm-hmm. You were playing well. I think you had gotten hurt earlier in the year that year, and you missed a couple of games. You came back, and we went on that run. And then from my perspective, like, I wasn't playing. I was in like a different mindset. Like, I was super like frustrated, and I had to like kind of carve out like a different role for myself, as far as like being more of like a player coach, and I'm on scout team, and I'm just kind of like, it took me a while to embrace what was happening.
Mm.
right? But you and I had like a lot of conversations, and I remember during the Grey Cup, right, I think I told you, and might have just been joking, but I was serious. I was like, we're like in 2021, I said we're going to win a Grey Cup, right? And you had gone to the Grey Cup prior, right, with
My rookie
Winnipeg,
year, my rookie
yeah,
year.
and didn't win,
Hmm.
right? And I had gone to three,
Yep.
right? And I played 7 years. How many years did you play? Like
At the
20?
time, no, only 12, only 12. But the last one was like a bonus, just extra. You know,
Yeah,
I was just
yeah,
there. I
yeah,
was just
yeah,
the
yeah,
game
yeah.
saying thank you.
You're Udonis Haslam.
Hey man, sometimes the game says, "Look, I want to thank you for everything," and
A hundred
I took it
percent.
gladly.
Hell yeah, you earned it for sure. But I remember just like having a wave of emotions myself because like you want to contribute,
Yeah.
right? And I remember kind of like just being mad. Like at the Grey Cup, I was mad. I was mad, and then I was like, for some reason at halftime, a light bulb like switched in my head, and I was like, man, I get to watch Henoc win a Grey Cup. I get to watch Tavares win a Grey Cup. I told Tavares this, like he watched me win a Grey Cup. He was hurt. He was mad in
Yep. Yep.
2018.
Yep.
I get to watch Winton win a Grey Cup, right? And I was just like, you know what? Like came out at halftime and like it's cold as hell in Sask. Like it was so cold, especially if you weren't playing. And I was just like, making sure guys were locked in. Like I felt part of it on the sideline again, as far as like just being part of the team and not being a spectator. And then when you got that pick and you sealed the deal, basically, I was like, he said something. Dave Chappelle's one of my favorite comedians. I think he's like a genius,
He's a
like when it
genius. Yeah.
comes to like his craft. And I don't know I think he got this quote from somebody, but I heard it from him. He said, you need to realize when you're living in someone else's dream.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah.
Right. And I swear to you, I remember that like that's what came to my mind was like I'm in Enoch. I'm part of Enoch's dream. Like I'm not saying like I'm a focal point of that dream, but like I'm living in his dream, right? And then you go up on the stage and you win MOC, you win MOP. Thea comes up, you're crying, you give like a great speech, and I'm like, yo, this is like a movie. You know what I mean? So like that's what it looked like from my perspective, like seeing you every bit of hard work, everything that you put in came to that point. Like part of the reason why I call my business High Point is because of that, right? Helping athletes, helping people reach their highest point, and also, high point in the football. So it was like kind of like a play on words, but like that was one of your high points. And then on top of that, I got to like go around with you in the city and like you're going to these different events and you're walking into these rooms. And I'm like, this guy is maximizing this short window. And, we're in rooms of like billionaires, millionaires, top level execs. And you would think that the Grey Cup didn't mean anything, but people love being around a winner.
That's it. That's
People
it.
love being around a champion. And I was just proud, man, like just to be there and just see like everything that you were doing and just like being part of like your story, and I'm like I said, I wasn't like a main character. I was like, kind of like a sidekick during that period of time. But like just seeing you like do that, man, it was truly inspiring. So I honestly just wanted to let you know that.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it, man. Like you said, I also admired you. You didn't even know, but I think people always look at the highest points of their lives and look to those and expect and look for those to be the highest point. Like I just know how much development that period of your career really was for you as an individual, and I could see it. I mean, I could see it in your face every time I see you. Like that's why we had all those talks, but I could see it in your face sometimes. But one of the things I always say when I speak is it's not so much about what the game gives you, right? It's not about any of the possessions that you actually have. It's great to have a Grey Cup. It's great to have rings, championships, trophies handed to you. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to come out here and show some false humility. I enjoyed every single moment of the rewards and the things that were tangible things that were handed to me. But I think what is far greater is a transformation that you experience while you are going through life. And the transformation that you experience through that moment, and as low as it may have seemed, I think is one of those things that will pay dividends for years to come, right? And so it's not about what you have as much as who you become, right? Inky Johnson, I love that dude so much. He always says that. He says, man, like, what's more important, what you have or who you are? And it's absolutely who you are, right? The person that you become, which is why, again, it's the dichotomy of football where it takes so much to be so great. And also at the same time, when you do that and you commit, which is a challenge in and of itself, because not everybody's willing to pay the price. But even for
Mm-hmm.
those who are willing to pay the price, like what you were touching on earlier as well, is hey, like, who are you, right? What is your identity? It's easy to lose yourself, and so that challenge, that fight for to keep your identity and not lose it as you go through your career is a never ending one. And so one of the best ways to combat that is just to be aware of the challenges and the battle that that you're gonna face on that journey. When you are aware, you can kind of prepare a little bit better and you can react properly to the highs and react properly to the lows.
What has it been like? Because I truly believe nobody is successful on their own, right? A lot of people will say like, I made it on my own or nobody believed me. And I truly don't believe that. Like anybody who's been successful, I don't think that they haven't had one person in their corner that like truly believes in them. So my question to you is like, how important has your support system been throughout your journey as an athlete?
It's been amazing. And to your point, like, there is absolutely nobody that is at the apex, at the peak, at a high point in whatever industry they might be thinking about or talking about that have made it there on their own. Like, I totally believe that as well. Um, there's a great African proverb that says, like, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And so I truly believe that. And for me, it's been such a real part of my life as well. Like, just to the whole point of, like, I don't think, JB, you know, that you and I would even be having this conversation if I didn't have the people around me that I had, right? I mean, I wouldn't have even played football, so we wouldn't have been teammates, we wouldn't have been friends. Probably the only perception you would have had of me would have been probably that, I'm this terrible person because I would have dunked on you on a basketball court
No,
somewhere.
you were a dirty
But
player when I
that's
played
not
against
true.
you.
That's
Yeah.
not true.
Yeah, you were.
But I just because I was physical don't mean nothing. Anyways,
No,
let's
you
get
hit
back.
me
Stay to
after the
the topic.
whistle. No, you hit
Let's
me
get
after
to
the
the
whistle. I
point.
need to get that on public record
Oh my
in my
gosh.
hip.
Prove it. Prove it.
I'll show you
There's
the
no
clip.
proof. Yeah, I think you were just soft, extra soft. That's
All
why.
right.
But what I was saying was, even the very first time I stepped on the football field was because it was somebody that was in my circle that I trusted, that I really looked up to. He was a mentor of mine. He was a teacher, coach, and really friend of the family that was like, you got to try football. You know what I mean? I'm in grade 10. He said, you got to try football. And I only took that leap of faith, and it literally was a leap of faith. And as physical as you want to say that I was at the time, basketball players are soft compared to football players, right? And that was who I really was. I was like, man, I'm not trying to get hurt playing football, but I really took that leap. I always refer to that point as a leap of faith because it's not something I really wanted to do. But I
Mm.
trusted in the person that was a mentor, that in my mind had better foresight, that in my mind was speaking life to me, right? So I trusted in what he said, and I was like, all right, let me try this out. Get on the football field. The rest is history. But people like him play such a pivotal role. I had great parents around me that challenged me nonstop. I had great friends around me that challenged me nonstop. I mentioned my older brother already, and he challenged me nonstop. And I had some great friends and teammates along the way that challenged me nonstop. And up until literally till right now, I go home and I get challenged, and my wife is one of those people as well. So it is extremely important to surround yourself with the right individual. Man, look, you don't have to pay me for this, JB, but take this nugget down, write it down, write it down, write it down. All right, pay
I
attention
have
to this.
a great memory.
All right, but for everybody else, you just gotta know too that legitimately, like, your potential is connected to the company that you keep. The people that you have around you can either tear you down, hold you back, or they have the ability to propel you into higher realms, right? And so I realized that really early on, before my football career ever took off, in the midst of my football career taking off, literally crashing down and coming back up, and all of the highs and lows of a particular career. But I realized that who you keep around you is so important, right? It is so important. And so I made it a point to be selfish with the people that I kind of, gave my time to, and to the people that I considered like true friends. And you know me, like, I've always been cool with everybody in the locker room, but there's only a few that are like true friends that I
Hmm.
consider within my circle. And it's
Hmm.
not against anybody else, but I really think that people need to take those people that you have around you and be real selfish, be real intentional with those decisions, because again, they really determine your destiny.
I agree, and and honestly, you've been a great friend. It's weird because I played against everybody in your family. Basically, I played against Calvin in high school. Him and Essay, they went to Mount Carmel. I remember playing against them. Played against your older brother. I played against
Yeah,
you. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And then we
yeah,
end up being teammates, and we've only really like known each other like this for like 4 years now.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And like you I'll tell another story. Like, I invited you to my wedding and you drove up from Canada to my wedding and you had to be on TSN the next day. And you drove, so
Hmm.
you drive 7.5 hours or however long it took you with your wife. You came to my wedding. You left at like 11:30 Central, which is like 12:30 Eastern. Drive back home. I don't even know what time you got home at. And then you're on TV the next day. And it's like, I had family members that didn't even like come or make the effort. Like they said they were coming and they didn't come. And I'm like, and then I have this guy who like drives up the day of and drives back the day of, and then he has a job to do the next day. And I'm just like, I'll never forget that for real. Like
Appreciate
it
it,
truly
man.
meant a lot. And to me and Courtney,
Yeah.
for you
I mean,
guys to be
and
there.
again, like, you again, like, the people that you value, you have to cherish them, and it's actions like that too that really depict and show how much you care about certain individuals. And then I'll tell you this, just because we're on the topic, I wouldn't do that for everybody. Right? I wouldn't do that for everybody. And of course, Jess and I have a relationship with you and Courtney. So we know, the kind of relationship that you have. Like, and there's some crazy people out there right now, right? There's some crazy relationships out there. Listen, I'm gonna just stop there before I get myself in trouble. But, I mean? Like, there's some people where it's like, like 2, 3 years down the road, it's also a testament to just how much we actually believe in the both of you. So
Yeah.
we made it a point to be there for you guys.
I appreciate that. And to that point, I bring up TSN. Like, what is it like being on the other side of the game? Like, you're now like I don't know if they call you an analyst, a panelist, something like that. But like, what is it like
Something
to
like
be on
that.
that like game day panel talking about guys that are currently playing? And a lot of us we didn't appreciate people like that when we played because they were talking about us. and now you're that guy. Although I think that you're fair in your opinion. You don't like knock anybody down, and I think that is. I don't think you have to be. You don't have to do that to be good at the job. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
I like the take that I like that you kind of like your style on there now as like a former athlete, especially like someone who's like newly removed from the sport. But what is it like to be in that position now?
I mean, it's been amazing. I've talked about at the beginning, even just the fact that I enjoy being in new circles where I'm not the greatest or I'm not the best at it, but I can work at it and become better. And this is one of those spaces as well. Media is something that I've always been passionate about. I've had my own podcast before. When I was in the NFL, in the off season, I did, a media boot camp and did some work with ESPN, NFL Network, and NFL radio and all these things, and got a chance to interview people. So that's where kind of that passion started back in like 2014, 13, 14, yeah. But being able to kind of cross over and kind of seeing the vision before I even got here. One, first of all, I'm grateful. And I don't take it for granted, JB. And I have to mention that because I don't think it's because I'm so great at what I do that I also think, man, I had a great sit down the other night with, Jess and I had a sit down with, the CEO of Snapchat and his wife, and we had dinner together, Snapchat Canada. And he was like, we were just talking about timing and how like timing is literally everything. Is everything. I was telling him like, oh, I think timing is so important. He's like, no, it is everything. It is absolutely everything. And to that point, it really stuck with me because it's so true. Like even when you talk about timing, like there's some people that have been great, man, like Hall of Famers and my colleagues now tell me, the guys that have been doing it for a long time and the producers that have been around for a long time, they tell me, you're great at what you do and all this and that, you're doing really well and we can see your improvement and this and that, which is great. And I accept it. And, I humbly always take criticism as well, and critiques. But, they tell me also like there's so many people that have knocked on this door, but it just wasn't open for them. There's so many people that had a great career, probably more championships than I only had one. I had great championship, had championships and great careers and probably know the game really well too. But you know what? I think it was great timing. I think I had great connections. I knew the right people, and I approached the conversations in the right way. And I was also patient. What people will probably say, "Oh, Enoch did this." Well, he was. I don't think I was perfect, and I was necessarily fully ready. I'm still learning now, even when it comes to media. But people don't realize, like, I started my media career 4 or 5 years before I even got my job, right? I talk about, my podcast that I had years before I ever got a call from TSN. I hosted the CFL podcast for a few years before I got the call from TSN. I talk about that boot camp that I did years ago. I've done some work with the CFL when it comes to, there's some old footage that I saw not too long ago, like a combine. I reached out to them. I said, hey, I want to do this. I want to contribute from a media perspective. And I had done well at the combine. So I wanted to leverage that to kind of do something that I wanted to dabble into. So I had done so many things prior to that moment. And I think that, along with the perfect timing, along with, my approach and attitude towards learning, is what also helped, get me to where I am right now. But I absolutely enjoy it, man. I think it's an honor, it's a privilege to be able to sit beside guys like, Milt Stiegel, who is a huge mentor of mine as well, and David Sanchez, who do such a great job, and our host, Kate Burness. I mean, like, there's a lot of people that are amazing, including like some of the producers there. I can't go through the whole list, but listen, it is absolutely something that I do not take for granted, because, like I said, there's a few doors in this world where you can knock till the cows come home, but it won't be open, right? It really takes somebody that, just believes in you from the inside and just opens the door and says, all right, here's your shot. But I will tell you this, right? I didn't know it was a audition, but my last year when I told you about, my bonus
Farewell
year,
tour.
my my bonus year, I remember like it was yesterday. We were going to Calgary, right? And I get a call finally because I was in conversation with TSN. I said, "Hey, look, I think this is gonna be my last one. I'm ready to move on. This is where I'm at." So I was already setting that up and having those conversations. And I talked to like one of the head guys at TSN, and he tells me like, "Okay, you know what? I'm gonna try and find some time. This is mid to late season already, and we're going to Calgary to play a game. I wanted to be there for the team. You talked about earlier embracing new roles and understanding how to, perform in different ways outside of just the ways that are conventional, right? That's what I had to be that year, right? I had to just be around the team, be a support, and give help and be extra eyes for the coaches and do this and do that. And so I wanted to be there. I wanted to go to Calgary with the team. So I've always been a part of the team, and from that perspective. And then I get the call from TSN. I was like, I don't know if I can come. I didn't even realize how huge of an opportunity it was. And it was really an audition when I look back. And I remember talking to our media guy, Chris Blanovich, and he said, you're not missing out on that. I talked to a few other people and they're like, you better go. I was like, all right, you sure? They're like, man, you better go. So I ended up going and I missed that trip with the team, but, an amazing experience. But I also knew I had to bring my A game because this is after everything and I was officially a part of TSN. They told me, they're like, you know how many people got that shot? You know how many people got an audition? And they were good, but when they came, the lights were just too bright, and they were a little flat when they were talking, and there was no really enthusiasm, there was no energy. But when you came, this is what you did. I attribute all of that to all the years that I spent doing my own podcast and learning how to change my intonations and my tone and my voice and my speech, speed up my speech and slow it down. And I do a lot of speaking as well. I think all of that played a role and translated directly into what I do right now. And so, timing, as Matt McGowan said, is absolutely everything, man.
And you put in like from the sounds of like just like the resume, you put in like a decade of work. I was a journalism major. That's what I graduated from NIU with. So I've been at this for like I want to say like 10 years now too, in a sense. And there's still a lot you got to figure out your style and
Yep.
because you at the end of the day like and I was joking at the beginning, but I was serious too. Is like people like authenticity, right? So if you're going on there and you're playing a character, it might work for a little bit, but it's not sustainable, in my opinion. So finding that balance of being authentic and like giving your opinions, and I think you've done a great job of like being authentic and then like being critical without being like harsh. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
there's like a difference of being like critical where it's like, constructive criticism. Like this player we know what he's capable of. He needs to do this instead of being like, oh, this guy sucks. You know what I mean? It's like, you don't know what's going on. And I think that players appreciate that. And it brings validity to the panel of having guys like yourself, guys like Milt, Davis, guys that have played at a high level. And, you know, I think that is great. I will say this though. I need you to ask Milt, what the heck is paper plates? Like what does that
Oh
mean?
gosh, man.
Do you
I
know?
mean, look, he explained it to me a while back, but I'll ask him. I'll get him to send you a message, man. But yes,
Yeah.
all of his tweets and everything he says at the end of it, you're gonna see him hashtag paper plates, man.
I've
But by
tried to
far,
figure it out. I can't. I'm like, I don't know. Do you throw the paper plates in the garbage? Like, are they disposable? Are these like opinions that are like, I don't know. I'm like, what does that
maybe,
mean?
man, maybe. But I'll get to the bottom of it. I'll get right back to you, man.
Yeah, let me know because like it's actually something that I've been thinking about. But I have a few more questions before we wrap up. I know your time is valuable, and it pertains to the CFL. Obviously, like you're in a different role now, right? Working for the league, working with the league. Uh, what are your thoughts on like the current state of the league? You've been in the league for 12 years. You've been around the league for what 14 years now. Um, like what is your opinion on like the way things are headed?
And been around again, like you said, for quite some time, and the league has evolved tremendously from when I walked into the league to I think where we are right now. There's a lot of great things, exciting things on the horizon that are happening. Some great partnerships, and I've had a chance now to work from a different perspective and from a different angle, excuse me, as well with the CFL, where I'm partners as well as like partnering with the league's partners and doing things at the office with regards to like the podcast and stuff like that, and obviously working for TSN. So I kind of see the league from a different perspective now as well, but I also see it from a player's perspective. Obviously, I haven't been one for as long as I was. I appreciate it and I love the growth. I've always been one to still demand and require and expect more, right? And I think that that's where we are. I think that we have so much potential as a league when it comes to the CFL, that we haven't fully tapped into yet. I'm excited for what is to come. I think I'm hopeful as well because there's been a lot of changes from when it comes to like personnel and not just on the team level. I'm really talking at a league level. I know there's some changes that have happened even at TSN. So this upcoming year, I actually got a text a couple of days ago, speaking just to that the coverage is going to have a different feel this year and beyond. And so, things like that give me hope. And I just know the potential that we have as a league, especially with the guys that are in the locker room that, in my opinion, still need to get more airtime, still need to
Yeah.
be advertised and marketed a little bit more. How it happens is the challenge, of course. And it's going to take a lot of conversations. It's going to take a lot of planning and strategizing, and but through that, man, I think that this league has so much potential. And I don't even think we've seen the tip of the full tip of the iceberg yet. So you ask the question, and I simply think that I'm excited, and I'm excited of the growth that I've seen over the years. But I'm so hopeful for more.
Will we ever see you run for commissioner of the CFL?
What's wrong with you, man? I'm way too young for all that, man. I feel like you're insulting me,
We
man.
need
But
a
no,
young. We need a young. Why not? Why not? You might bring some fresh ideas to the forefront.
you know what, man? Maybe one day. Maybe one day. At this point in my career, I'm enjoying this stage. Stepping away from the game has liberated a little bit of time for me and has allowed me to spend more time with my family. I'm always really conscious of like, hey, what am I doing and how can I maximize on it? But at the same time, also spending a good amount of time with my kids, my wife. Um, it's a beautiful stage, man. I absolutely love where I'm at. But at the same time, too, I'm super passionate about the game and being around, the league, the way that, the amount of time that I am, and being connected to the league from the media perspective as well. I still feel very much a part of that. But I think that, over time, I will be able to also commit more. And if it's a role as far as, a leader from that perspective, I would probably take it and run with it. But for me right now, I don't think it's time yet. But it's coming,
I
hopefully,
hear you.
maybe.
I hear you. Well, if you do, let me be like the assistant commissioner. I feel like, I'll be like your vice president or whatever, vice prime minister, or whatever it is.
I'm 1,000% taking you with me, JB.
My last question: if you could give advice to a young Enoch, or like your 16-year-old, 18-year-old self, what would you tell yourself?
Don't hold back. I feel like I was a timid young boy, and a lot of that had to do with obviously my upbringing, which was, relatively traumatic when I look back with all of the changes and everything. But I also see myself in my daughter, my young daughter, who's a beast in gymnastics. Shout out to Courtney, who's still supposed to train her, but um, but she's a beast, and sometimes I see myself in her because I can see sometimes where she's like holding back, and you can see she has more to give, but she's like almost wants to be respectful, almost wants to like not show off, almost like doesn't necessarily want to go all out. And so I feel like I can see myself in her when she does that. And I'm coaching her through those moments as well. But I feel like I eventually got there, and I was still able to be nice. I was still able to be the nice Enoch that people know me to be. But when it came to playing football, I was okay with hitting people hard, and I was
You
okay
were gonna
with
say hurting people.
having. Hey, that's just part of the
I
game. When you
told you
step
you're
between those
dirty.
white lines,
You're a dirty
no,
guy.
no, no. When you step between those white lines, you basically give permission to be hit as hard as you
Mm,
can when you're an offensive guy. But
that's fair.
yeah, no, I would tell myself, man, go all out. And again, there were points early on in my life, at 15, 16 years old, where I was still trying to find myself and trying to figure out how to give everything that I can. I eventually got there, but that's the advice I would definitely tell myself. Don't hold back, and what's the worst that could happen? And even if you fail, guess what? You'll learn more probably in the failure and the shortcomings than you probably would in the wins.
I love it. Well, I appreciate your time, my brother. If there's anything that you want to plug, your social media, any events, any speaking engagements that you have coming up, go ahead and do that. But I appreciate your time, and it was a great conversation. So let the people know where they can follow you, find you at anything that you have coming up, and we can wrap this thing up.
Henoc Muamba on Twitter. Oh, they call it X now, huh, JV?
They
You're
call it
very active on
whatever.
there. Yeah, but Henoc Muamba on X Twitter. But he underscore who knocks, soon to be Henoc Muamba. Find me on there. I'm done knocking out
They
people.
let you change it?
They haven't, but I want to. What?
I want to. I
You're
want to
not
change
supposed
mine
to?
too.
You can't? They won't let you?
No, it's like a whole process. You can't just change it
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me
unless you
right
know
now?
somebody. If you know somebody, please tell me because I want to change my name.
That's crazy. I'll try. I have to find out. But yeah, no. He underscore who knocks right now, and apparently, from what JB's telling me, it is going to be forever. But no, follow my journey on there. I think it's the best way, and I'm always open. I've never been one to be stingy with, sharing information. So shoot me a DM, and hopefully we get a chance to chat at some point or another, and you'll hear some of my speeches and some of the things that I've been doing um, as I continue on my journey, man.
I love it. Well, like I said before, I appreciate your time. For all the listeners, if you made it this far, make sure you like, follow, subscribe, share with somebody so we can grow this thing, get more listeners, and just spread the good word. Have a
And
great
tell
day.
JB and tell JB we got to get part two going, man.
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
I appreciate
Appreciate
your
you,
time,
brother.
JB. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.